How's it going, guys? It's Kass. As always, if you've been enjoying my content, then hit that subscribe button. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Havoc Demon Hunter Potency Conduits and going through the Potency Conduits specifically and talking about some of the synergies these conduits have with different types of builds for Demon Hunter. The first of the Potency Conduits that we're going to be talking about today is Dancing with Fate. Dancing with Fate makes the final slash of Blade Dance deal an additional 10% increased damage, up to 24% at rank 15. This is a direct conduit that will be seeing use if we go back to a First Blood style of Demon Hunter. I personally do not want that to happen, so I'm hoping that this conduit isn't that great so we don't get to that point, because I don't want BFA 2.0 where we're just playing First Blood style Demon Hunter the whole expansion. But that's my personal opinion. I think this conduit's pretty good. It has some interesting synergy with Chaos Theory as well. However, I think the next conduit also has interesting synergy with Chaos Theory and potentially better synergy with Chaos Theory. That conduit is Relentless Onslaught. Relentless Onslaught makes Chaos Strike have a 5% chance to trigger a second Chaos Strike. It's important to realize that the second Chaos Strike isn't just the damage from Chaos Strike, that it's an actual Chaos Strike, so it should have a potential to refund as well. That creates for interesting scenarios where you're pressing Chaos Strike, the initial Chaos Strike refunds, and then you have a second trigger and that also refunds. Obviously, it's a percent chance for that to happen, so the likelihood of those two situations happening at the exact same time is actually a very low probability, but when it does happen, it has very, very good results for Chaos Theory style Demon Hunters. If you just think about it, and you're basically doubling your chance at refunds whenever you have the second proc happen. At the first rank, 5% is obviously very low. I don't know if this works like Chaos Theory, where this will happen every 20 Chaos Strikes that you press, or if it's just a flat 5% and could potentially happen back to back. That's something that we're going to have to see in testing and see at the launch of the expansion. However, once we get up to 14.5%, that gets to a situation where it's a lot more likely for this to happen, obviously. It's 3 times more likely than rank 1, and that's when I think this conduit will shine the most. When we think about Chaos Theory and the legendary itself, when we do have Chaos Blades procced, it makes it so Chaos Strike has a 100% chance to refund, and it makes it so Chaos Strike's damage is increased. So we're going to be pressing Chaos Strike a lot in that window, and the chances that we get the doubled Chaos Strikes are going to be actually pretty high in those windows. And it's going to get to a point where every single time that you proc Chaos Blades, you're going to get a full reset on I-Beam. So it's a pretty interesting combination, and it's pretty bonkers to think about how much actual Fury generation you're going to be having in that situation. If you get multiple procs of this, you're going to have so much Fury in that window that you're going to just be overcapped the whole entire time. It's going to feel incredible during those windows, which is why I think this conduit will actually probably end up being one of the best single target DPS conduit options. The next one is a interesting option for the beginning of the expansion for sure. That's Growing Inferno. It increases Immolation Aura's damage by 10% each time it deals damage, and that is at rank 1, and at rank 15 it goes up to 24% increased damage. Basically, this turns Immolation Aura upside down, kind of, whereas before, Immolation Aura was the initial explosion damage was going to be the most damage Immolation Aura was going to be doing, and then you radiate slightly less damage for the rest of the duration. Now we're in a situation where this is additive, so each time you radiate, you're going to be doing more and more damage. This has some very interesting synergy with Burning Wound, the new legendary that we got. That increases the damage of Immolation Aura by 50% to targets that have Burning Wound on them, and it's going to be one of the easier ones to get early in the expansion, hopefully. So potentially going to be the first legendary that you have access to in the first couple of weeks. So at the beginning of the expansion, Growing Inferno plus that combination could actually end up being a very, very good combination. However, I think as the expansion goes on, the power that the combination has obviously will go down because Burning Wound isn't that great, and Growing Inferno I think is actually pretty good, but I think it's only going to be good when you have it in conjunction with that legendary. Realistically, I don't see this being the best option as we get later in the expansion. And lastly, we have Serrated Glaive. Enemies hit by your throw glaive take 10% increased damage from I-Beam up to 24% at rank 15. This, I've been saying from the beginning, is a good option, especially if you're playing a Cycle of Hatred build. The more I-Beams that you do, the more increased damage I-Beam does. So it's just good to use in synergy with that. Also, it's a pretty decent cleave option, so I think this is going to be dominant in Mythic Plus and pretty good overall. Then next we have the Covenant Demon Hunter specific Potency Conduits. This is one of those things where I think it's going to take a lot of simming to understand when we should be taking these versus when we shouldn't be taking these, because I think a lot of these are very undertuned at the beginning but get very strong later on in the ranks. So that's something important to be looking forward or to be looking at when deciding these things for your characters and deciding what specific conduits you should be going for. For Kyrian, we have Repeat Decree. It makes Elysian Decree echo a second after the initial damage for 25% of its damage at rank 1, all the way up to 60% damage at rank 15. I think once we get into like rank 10 and higher, this will probably be a very good option and competitive with base Demon Hunter Potency Conduits. I think this is a pretty decent option once we get up to those higher ranks. Then we have Increased Scrutiny. Same thing. What it does is it reduces the cooldown of Sinful Brand by 5 seconds at the base rank, so it goes down to 55 seconds. And then at max rank, rank 15, it goes down to 48 seconds. This is just a flat damage increase to Sinful Brand, so it's going to take some calculations to figure out when it is best optimal to be using it. I do think this is a good potency conduit, again, once we get to like rank 10 through obviously rank 15. Then we have Brooding Pool. This is one of those things where my personal opinion is going to blind me in talking about this. I don't think Fire Flame is good. I don't like the design of it, and I don't think really anything that they can do to there's not really anything they can do to it that's going to change my mind, except making it absolutely bonkers. This change is obviously pretty good. It increases the window that you're going to have increased damage with the Demon Soul up to 15 seconds at rank 15. However, like I said, I don't think any Demon Hunter that is looking at playing DPS should be playing Father of Flame. And lastly, we have Unnatural Malice. This is the Night Fae Potency Conduit. It increases the damage of the Hunt's strike against the primary target by 25%, then up to 60%. So for those of you that don't know, the Hunt is 2 separate damage windows. It does an initial strike that does 455% increased attack power, and then it does a dot to 5 targets that you hit with the Hunt on the way to the primary target. If you only are hitting just the primary target, that dot is applied to the primary target still. This is a just flat damage increase to the first portion of it, which actually is pretty good when you start to think about things like PvP. Specifically, I think these dots will probably be dispellable, considering that Sinful Brand is dispellable. So this potency conduit isn't getting reduced by the potential of the dot being dispelled, considering it's just the strike. At 60% damage, it's going to be doing increased damage. It's going to be doing a significant amount of damage and provide a very interesting burst cooldown for Demon Hunters specifically that allow a gap close and that instant damage. So I think this is actually a pretty good option for PvP, and honestly a pretty good option for PvE as well. I think in the future I may make a video comparing Sinful Brand and the Hunt just to talk about damage specifically between the two. However, there's a lot of interesting mechanics with haste that's involved with Sinful Brand and the Hunt together. So it's a lot more complex than I feel I have the ability to communicate to people. So that video may or may not come out. I'm not still 100% sure about that. Anyway, if you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like the video, F5, refresh, try it again. Maybe like the second time. Have a good one.